Well, first of all, the fact that we got a budget done in a divided government at the state level, I thought was really important as we're dealing with the federal government shutdown. You see that, we rose to the occasion, we compromised, and we got it done at the state budget level. That meant we gave them a clean continuing resolution when we needed time to get our budget done. So that's something at the federal level the Democrats have done 13 times when Biden was president. So we didn't try to leverage our political demands in a continuing resolution. We passed a continuing resolution. We needed about a week to finish up our work, and we got it done. And the state government is open, and the schools are open. I thought what was important in this budget, we wanted to amplify the working families tax cut that President Trump passed to deliver no tax on tips, overtime, Social Security. Michigan workers that this benefits are going to see about a $1,500 benefit in their taxes without tips on or taxes on tips and overtime. And our seniors are going to see hundreds of dollars of benefit with no tax on Social Security on their state taxes. I think it's important we bring the government workers back to work. We're going to see fewer building leases renewed. We're going to see more workers back to work. I think that's going to be good for the people as they get better service from government moving forward. Um, we delivered a budget that was smaller than last year, and we dedicated $800 million of cuts to waste, fraud, and abuse, and we're dedicating that to fixing our local roads. And we passed the biggest roads deal in Michigan's history, where we're taking waste, fraud, and abuse, and we're dedicating it to roads. We're finding over $2 billion of new money for roads between the revenue and the cuts. We matched Governor Whitmer dollar for dollar. I said, every dollar of waste, fraud, and abuse you cut from departments, I'll give you a dollar of revenue. And we are going to finally fix our local roads because of it. So that's going to be a big one. We did defund SOAR. These programs haven't been working. I mean, you saw this Goshen project in Big Rapids. Governor Whitmer finally threw in the towel on that one. They had pledged over $150 million to Goshen. They've already paid out about 24 million of it. And so now we're going to have to go back and the state's going to have to try to get that money back. And, the land isn't worth that. So, we'll see whether they're successful in getting that from Goshen. But you see how secretive this was. They went in there, the state very secretively, they made a deal with a company, Goshen, that had ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This community did not want it, and they fought it. And ultimately, this grassroots effort prevailed. But we're looking at this project and many other projects and saying that Whitmer has spent billions of dollars for corporations, for jobs that pay below average, and they never create the jobs. They constantly are pushing out the date the jobs will show up, and they're revising down the total number of jobs. So we want to end SOAR, the House Republicans, we want to end SOAR. We want to end the mega credits, which is an even worse deal that Governor Granholm made, where we pay companies like GM $300 million a year not to lay off 15,000 workers. They could lay off 14,000 workers and keep their 300 million a year, right? That isn't a good deal. So we want to eliminate these bad deals that pay cash to corporations, and we want to come up with something new. I would like to see some kind of objective criteria administered through the Treasury Department and not through the MEDC. We've seen so many failed deals done by the MEDC. And any company that creates a certain number of jobs that pays above average wages, could be eligible for this credit. And rather than pick 4 or 5 deals and pay them cash up front, let's set a criteria for our employers to try to achieve. And if they create the jobs and they pay above average wages, then all of them can get an incentive from the state. That's where we want to try to move this to before the end of the year. That's about a little over $300 a month that many Michigan families get from the food stamp benefits and the SNAP program. And, that's money they spend to pay their grocery bill. And when it just goes away, because of dysfunction in the federal government, I mean, that's hard for a lot of people. We're hearing from people in our communities in West Michigan about it. So, when I was faced with these similar decisions here in the state of Michigan about, should the schools stay open? Should the veterans home stay open? Should the state police stay open? Should we fund local governments? I thought it was important to compromise and make a deal and not to try to use a continuing resolution as leverage, but to give the Democrat governor, a clean continuing resolution so we could keep our negotiations ongoing in good faith. That's a common practice. The Democrats did it 13 times under Biden. They should do that now. Instead, what they're doing is kind of unique. They're leveraging on a government shutdown for more spending. And some of that spending will go to healthcare for illegal aliens. But what we did at the state level is we cut waste, fraud, and abuse. We cut spending. People don't want more spending in unbalanced budgets. They want less spending and they want better value for their dollars. So to combine the chaos of a government shutdown with a demand of more spending, to me is pretty surprising. I think these conversations should be had after a vote for a continuing resolution, and then have these political discussions and eventually come to a deal and compromise, because we're starting to see the state impacted by the federal money going away. And as you stated, I mean, it's unlikely that the state government can step in and pay for a lot of this stuff because, we just finished our budget and we spent every dollar we had in the budget. So to go back and reopen that budget process to try to patch this. I mean, it's $300, or excuse me, about $300 million a month in the SNAP benefits. You have 1 million people, you said, and it's about $300, a little more on average. So per person. So it's a little over 300 million. That's a big hole to fill month after month after month while this shutdown continues. I would say with Quentin Messer, who's Governor Whitmer's choice to lead the MEDC, we have not seen any good coming out of the MEDC. I think moving forward, the incentives should be run through the Treasury Department, and rather than being like MEDC picking winners and losers, we should go to a system where the Treasury Department administers it and doesn't pick winners and losers. They create a neutral criteria. Any company that comes in or existing company and creates a certain number of jobs that pay above average wages can get a benefit after they perform, as opposed to what they're doing, which is picking 4 or 5 companies, paying them billions of dollars, and none of them creating jobs. The Marshall deal, they've pushed out the years when the jobs are going to be created. They've downsized it a few times, the number of jobs. And the wages on that are below average wages. The last I saw, the average wage is $48,000 a year, yet they're paying billions of dollars for this. So that was a bad deal. Even bad deals will have some benefit if the jobs are created, but it's a bad deal for the taxpayers to pay $1.8 billion for, like, I don't know, it's probably down to 1,600 jobs that pay what, 48,000 a year. That's a bad deal. So we need to make better decisions with our tax dollars. I mean, you look at the billions of dollars they spent on the big corporations. We could have used that to fix roads, bridges. If we hadn't spent our state surplus on things like bad economic development deals, we would have the money to pay SNAP benefits right now. It's been a real waste. Well, we'll have another budget to do next year, and I'd like to see us continue to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in that budget. We got rid of 2,000 ghost employees in this one. You know, those are fake jobs that they use to pad departments. We found another 3,000 ghost employees in government that we want to eliminate next year. You know, we want to continue to eliminate the wasteful programs, the wasteful grant programs, to continue to eliminate wasteful spending at the MEDC. Um, and we want to look at property tax relief. Affordability is really important right now for people, and so you know, we fixed local roads. That's going to be helpful. You know, they're not going to be the $750 on average a year car repair bills for Michigan drivers. We're eliminating taxes on tips, overtime, Social Security. People are going to see real savings from that, Michigan workers and seniors. Now we're looking at property tax. How can we reduce people's property tax burden? How can we stop these property taxes from rising so much from year to year, like we've seen the last few years? Those are some things that we want to tackle as we continue to look at affordability being so important at this time.